Good evening, friends. Welcome to this edition of the Mystery Wine Blind Tasting, our Thursday gathering, tasting some special wines. It appears on my side that I might not have camera access, and I'm not sure exactly why. I apologize. I'm hoping it would go through for you, but perhaps just not on my end. Regardless, if you're joining, please shoot me a note and let me know that you're here, and we will proceed to the best that we possibly can. If mine isn't showing up via the video portion of the evening. So I'm opening this tonight sight unseen prior to us being here as I was trying to troubleshoot this camera issue. But Bobbin and Dean, hello. You see initials, but you don't see me then, huh? Hello, Sarah. How are you? From Pennsylvania, always joining us. That's awesome. Great to have you with us. I'm opening this little number, seeing what we have before us. I hope everybody enjoyed a special holiday season. Kind of finishing up the holidays with what was a spectacular time of year and ventured into this, for us, at least here, freezing time of year. I don't know how it is up for you and Sarah in Pennsylvania, but it's pretty dang cold. Everything has kind of cut into life here. People have retreated inside and schools have been canceled. And so we're doing the best we can. Certainly we're trying to stay warm. Dean, you caught on to my new strategy for the year. I'm going to do this so that you're blind and can't see me. And that allows me to know more about what's in the bottle. No, it has not. So my apologies. I'm not sure exactly what has happened on the video side here. So hoping it'll kind of refresh as we move forward. One way to stay warm, though, certainly is with this robust red that I think is before us. Natalie, thank you. And hello to the Kubitskis and the Bennetts. Great to have you with us this evening, too. Thank you very much for joining. I'm going to see if, all right, well, this video doesn't appear to want to cooperate with me, and I apologize for that. But let's work this together, and we can do it in the audio version until I can figure out something perhaps going forward. Oh, gosh. All right, so visually, tell me what you see. We're going to work this as we would any typical wine. What do you see when you swirl this wine? What are the color components? What's the viscosity look like? Do you have tears forming? Do they hold into a leg? What are you getting out of this particular visual experience? Chris Pearman is thirsty and joining us. Hello, Chris. Good evening to you. Great to have you with us. This, very fascinating. I can't already, I'm getting ahead of myself relative to the nose, and there's quite a few wonderful aromas. But Curtis, thank you for keeping me back on track with thin, fast-moving legs, right? So they form, they're distinctive, but they are pretty quick to move. My second and third kind of swirled because they've layered perhaps one on top of another. They're not quite as fast, but they are moving with some speed, certainly relative to other wines, which tells you maybe this is a medium-bodied wine, not necessarily a very robust wine. It's not a light wine, though, by any means. So, and when we say light or robust in this context, we're really thinking about what the sugar that was in the grapes is doing by way of the fermentation. Has it become a very robust kind of high alcohol wine? Is there some residual sugar left behind? In either case, residual sugar or robust kind of high alcohol, you're going to get more viscosity. The legs are going to be something that are more substantial. The tears form and they take a little bit longer to come down. So Robert at the Caps game. Oh, thank you at least for chiming in. Go Caps indeed. glad to have you even for a brief moment. I hope you enjoy your evening and you can watch the replay, which, as you'll note, clearly doesn't have a visual, which maybe is the gift of the new year. You don't have to look at me. We can just talk about wine, and that's probably even better. I should do the Mystery Wine Blind Tasting radio program, not the video broadcast. Sarah, I agree. A nice ruby color. It's got a beautiful red kind of cast to it. Deep in the center, right? There's kind of this density to the wine in the middle. I wouldn't say that you can almost see through it, pretty much see through it. So it's got a little bit of density. So that density is talking about a color extraction from some skins that express a pretty rich grape, but not the biggest, boldest grape in the world. It's the blind tasting. Yeah, I like that. Thank you, Curtis. Very ruby, candy, and a great nose. Yes, I mean, like I said earlier, I was getting ahead of myself because the nose was just kind of reeling me in. But the color too, it's alluring. That ruby color, that jewel of a color, is present in this with thin legs. So let's talk about what you smell then in this kind of alluring nose. Candy, flattery will get you everywhere. Thank you. We're always looking for a few things, right? Fruit, earth, and wood. What other fruit characteristics do you find in this particular wine? Is it fresh fruit? Is it dried fruit? Is it medicinal fruit? Is it candied fruit, stewed fruit? That's the characteristic of the fruit. And then what type of fruit? Is it tree fruit? So you think about apples and pears. Is it stone fruit? You think about nectarines and peaches. You think about apricots. Is it berry fruit? So blackberries, raspberries, maybe even cherries, for example. Where do you go on the fruit spectrum? Citrus, tropical fruit. Is there any form of fruit? And then earth, and earth can be sort of kind of anything from a mineral characteristic, crushed rocks, wet rocks, saline sort of sea spray. It can have a leather component. It can have a forest floor, a bark, a woodsy kind of aroma, a barnyard aroma, all those earthy characteristics. And then you can also have wood elements. And I'm seeing already from your descriptions that are put forward, we're getting a little bit of everything there. And wood is more often than not expressed by way of spice, sometimes by way of cedar, sometimes by way of a little bit of vanillin character or dill. And the spice in particular, the chocolate, the coconut that, Mark, you're picking up on, is often a factor of the burning or the charring of the oak staves that you would find in wood. And that's how it's expressing itself in the wine, in the aromas of chocolate, coconut, of spice that Curtis is picking up. Dried cranberries are great, Candy. So you're talking about dried fruit, tart fruit coming together, which kind of dovetails a little bit with the cranberry part being a tart red fruit that expresses perhaps in a cooler climate or a cooler situation, cooler growing area, with relative correlation to the thin kind of sheeting legs. Elderberry, awesome. So a little bit of richness, a tiny bit of medicinal element, dark berries, cinnamon, touch of leather. So dark berry fruit, cinnamon is that woodsy kind of expression, leather, earth. So Dean's picking up on all of the few things. These are all tremendous descriptors. I think, excuse me, you're doing quite well picking up on all of those notes. That's nice. It's really, as was noted, kind of an alluring nose. It just really, there's a lot of layers of flavor there. Currant, Julie, I agree. There's this interplay between a tart fruit, a fruit with high acidity that has maybe some ripeness to it. You've got that sort of cranberry quality, that elderberry quality, that currant element. It's, it's not like super ripe black cherry, but it has a fresh tartness to some concentration, the chocolate bit from the perhaps oak. Yeah, Sarah. So we're good. A little freshly opened steak. Curtis, what do you mean, freshly opened? Like a little bit of a raw meat characteristic, because that's certainly there, I think, too, which takes me sort of to Syrah kind of. Fun. Okay. So You've swirled, you've observed, you've sniffed. Well, let's taste. Yeah, raw red meat. I get it. Absolutely. Kind of that tacky quality of that exterior part where it's meaty. I get you. I agree. That sometimes is a tell for Syrah. So what do you taste? Also looking for a few things. In addition to a few things, we're looking for an expression or a statement on the quality of the wine and on the structure of the wine. So is there a robustness on the palate? Does this wine read like whole milk or like 2% milk or like skim milk? Where is the acidity at? Does it cause you to salivate for 10 or 15 seconds longer after you've had your sip? Is it somewhere between 5 and 15 seconds, or is it not really there much at all in the way of acidity? Where's the tannin at? Is the tannin gripping? Are you suffering from cotton balls stuffed up between your lips and your gums, causing you to have just this dry sensation all throughout the mouth? Or is it on the lighter side of things and there's no real drying quality? There is no kind of powdery experience or chalky experience by way of the tannins. It's very fine and thin. Chris, you're noting a minerality over glycerin. So a minerality, so this sort of freshness, earthen quality that comes by way of perhaps the soil type where it comes from. And glycerin, you're talking about sort of a sugar weight, right? So a density. So we're talking about something that is both lifted and rich. Is that right? Yeah. Mark, you're noting a medium-bodied, nice acidity. Yep. Short finish, but not overly tannic. I agree. Natalie's not finding much in the way of tannins either. Has a medium acidity with some lower alcohol from Sarah. Cooler climate, yeah, it's suggestive of that, certainly, isn't it? We've had a few cues, at least a clue in the wine that's telling us that we're perhaps not in a very tannic place by way of a cooler climate from some of the fruit profile too. There's an earthiness, no doubt about it. Welcome aboard, Chris. Apologies, I don't have video tonight for some reason that I can't seem to figure out in the midstream here, but join us if you've got the bottle open. We found the wine to be kind of ruby in color, light, thin, but quick legs and tears. The tannin started low for you, Curtis, and then build. So yes, we've had that experience many times, right? Where that first sip, it's not really quite present and it needed to open a touch. And then as you build or as they layer in your palate bit by bit, they become a little bit richer. There is an underlying funk. I agree with that. There's kind of this slightly earthy element on the nose. It's not Lucia's cup of tea. Fair enough. Yeah, the tannin is building. It's expanding for me. It's not necessarily bigger. It's just layering. And it's kind of ever present throughout the wine. It's there in the beginning and definitely lingers at the end. And it's one of those types of tannin that can kind of amplify the acidity, makes you salivate a little bit more or accentuates what the acidity is doing to make that happen. A bit of burnt tobacco, earth, mineral notes, compounding. Yes, Curtis, I think so. Sometimes you get this layering effect that compounds the tannin expression where your first sip, it's not quite bonded and to your palate, and then it kind of continues to build on that and then grows, and you get this development of tannin, which perhaps is in a way more truthful about what the tannin expression is of the wine, but also perhaps in a different way is a compounding of it, because it's the layering after taste by taste of it. And without having it with food, which would bond potentially with some of that tannin and kind of soften the wine out, or with time, the oxygen might soften some of that tannin. It compounds. Ooh, Dean, I like the anise element. Yeah, no, I'm searching for that. So yes. So there's a lot of a few things here, right? The FEW things, the fruit, earth, wood things. There's elements of wood, there's elements of earth, there's elements of fruit in variety of different forms, from that tart fruit character to a little bit of a ripeness to that. There's the herbal elements. Dean, you think we've tried something like this before? Oh, interesting. That'd be fun if Julie had pulled something like this out already, and then, or put it out there in the world, and then put it on mystery. Sometimes that happens where I'll buy something, right, and I put it on the list or play with it somewhere, and Julie has already decided to select it for a mystery wine. And of course, she can't talk to me about it. She can't be like, you can't do that. She's trying to keep it away from me. And so there's a chance. I just don't know. Chris is sharing with us how a little bit of time can also help to even out a wine's potential wonkiness in the beginning. There's a minty element. There maybe is a little bit of that Brettanomyces, or Brett, as Chris is calling it there too, which is Brett sometimes can add intrigue and character and kind of an earthy quality, and sometimes it can strip away some fruit and kind of knock the wine off kilter. It's definitely part and parcel with some wines and how they're made. It's just part of their signature. And other wines, it's more of a fault and kind of draws away from them. Ooh, some vanilla extract candy too. Yep. So we're talking about elements of oak in that regard. Ooh. Yeah. Where it was kind of short a little bit on the entry, it's still not particularly long, but there's a bit more opening and evolving about this particular wine. So let's talk about whether this is a wine that, given our profile, right, lighter to begin with, but maybe building comfortably toward a medium-bodied wine with medium tannins, medium to medium plus acidity, reddish fruit, earthen elements. There's a minerality. There's a little bit of funk. There's a potential little bit like a Brettanomyces element or Brett. It is, yeah, it's got an oak quality to it by way of spice and vanilla. So this wine presents from where in the world? This is a wine that you would find in the New World, in the Old World? Is this a wine that comes from a cooler place in the New World, a warmer place in the Old World? Where do you see this coming from? And as you venture to a place, does that inform the potential varietals that we should be considering? Or are you thinking about this in a different way? This has signature tells like the meaty quality that tell me of Syrah, and where should we think about this being from? What kind of Syrah, or where in the world would Syrah be presented like this? So Curtis is starting on the varietal side, and Chris is answering my question about Old World, New World, and is saying Old World, and I think that's pretty fair. Curtis from the Cab Franc side. So as you're doing this then, and you're thinking Cabernet Franc, where in the world would you find this particular wine? Chris is denoting a style of production by way of the person selecting it. So Fran Casella, of course, of Casella Wines out of Winchester. Fran, master of wine and fantastic importer who's got wines from all over the world, but you have a palate style, you have a preference and a signature. And so when you say a Fran Casella style, Chris, what are you talking about? This type of wine, obviously. So what are the signature tells for you in that way? Curtis is noting an old world kind of wine. I think so. Yeah. Pinot Noir, possibly. Natalie, there's a lot of elements about this that could be Pinot Noir, right? In terms of just the descriptor words that we used. I think that reddish fruit, some of that ruby character, it's got a little bit more richness and a little bit more tannin than most would expect to find from Pinot Noir, but it could. I mean, I don't think you're way off base there. Some of that Brett Funk, not necessarily something you would find typically in the producers of Pinot Noir, but it could be there. Chris is noting the Rhone, Languedoc and Roussillon, so southern France. Sarah, Burgundy. So you with Natalie and kind of playing Pinot Noir and Burgundy. Yeah, I mean, So for me, and if you taste this again, and about a third of the way through of the taste experience in your mouth, there's a density, there's a weight of the wine, and there's an expansiveness of it that begins to kind of fill your mouth. It coats the ceiling of your mouth, the roof of your mouth. It fills out a little bit on the palate. This is by no means rich and bold and powerful, like I say a Cabernet Sauvignon would be. But as it expands like that, that's where, for me, it departs from Burgundy. Where Burgundy is going to be more refined, a little bit more elegant, even in its brash ways, and be a little less dense, a little less weighty. I hope that makes some sense. So for me, it kind of runs away from Burgundy in that regard. And part of that weight would potentially be something that you would find by way of alcohol. And I think that's the note that that Mark just put forward, and that's really right. Like, I think there's a bit more alcohol here, which would take us a little bit warmer. Yeah, I think. So Chris is noting the Loire Valley, which goes back to the Cabernet Franc idea, and potentially having sort of Loire Valley Cabernet Franc. Oregon Pinot Noir, you can certainly get ripeness. I don't think you'd get the tannin, and I'm not sure you would get this funk. I don't think you'd get the Brett element, the Brettanomyces element. I don't think you'd get some of the medicinal element. And don't forget here, we're dealing with a fair amount of oak expression that, yes, you can absolutely have on Pinot Noir, but I think would probably ride with a bit weightier grape, generally speaking. We had a note for Corbière from kind of the Francasella side of things. Corbière, southern France. So a Grenache, Syrah, Sanso, Carignan kind of mix, maybe a little bit of Syrah in there. Natalie's not picking up the funk. Okay. It's sort of a woodsy funk kind of blended in here. There's this tartness to the fruit that verges medicinal that kind of is that funk. Sarah's not seeing a lot of aging evidence, but potentially Nebbiolo, and that's a nice idea. That's an interesting thought. Nebbiolo would give you some fine tannin, and it wouldn't be necessarily Nebbiolo, say, from Barbera, I see Barbaresco or Barolo, but it could be Nebbiolo from the Langhe. So you get a little bit more richness, a little bit more ripeness, you're more valley floor. So kind of an expression of Nebbiolo that way. Carignan, I like that call very much. Hey, Dean, you can leverage any advantage you have in this game. If you think you've got it, go for it. It doesn't mean it's going to be the case. And more often than not, I would say, if you had it here before, it's probably not a wine that we would have poured in this case. But Chris is noting a little bit of aging on the meniscus. Yeah, I see. I mean, there's a little variation, a little bit of water on the rim too. So we've got a little bit of an alcohol. I think we're 13.5 to 14% alcohol here, as opposed to less than that. Dean is a Spanish Bierzo. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Mencia, that's a very good call. So Mencia being Pinot-like, but with a little bit more tannin and structure, coming from the northwestern part of Spain. Bierzo is a very cool call. I like that thought. And you got the spelling exactly right, except for the A. It's an A goes to an O, Bierzo. But the tannin for me is still continuing to build. Like, it's still there. I like Mencia for that reason. It's a little bit like Nebbiolo in that regard, but Nebbiolo would be, I think, just a bit more. Nebbiolo's tannins is not like to be trifled with. It just sort of, it is front and center in a way that's meaningful until it ages, I think, more than this wine displays as potential age. The fruit too, we're not getting kind of that rose note, that cherry note. It's more about the cranberry. I like that Mencia idea. Curtis is going toward Bordeaux, a Bordeaux blend. Yeah, that's a great question here. Should we talk about blend? Like, is there enough anomaly in terms of the different variety of flavors and tastes that you're picking up to be explained by one varietal? In which case you might start to think about a blend, i.e. you've got ripe fruit or an underripe fruit. So maybe there's two different blends that are being played together. Yeah, it's in a warmer year. Chris is noting that he thinks Bierzo plays well too, and I think that's a fun point. I tasted a Macon Verze today with one of our wine reps. Macon Verze, Macon is in the southern part of Burgundy, a Chardonnay, and it tasted like POG, P-O-G, which is passion fruit, orange juice, and guava juice, which in Hawaii is just delicious, and you drink it all the time. And it was unmistakably POG, passion fruit, orange and guava all over the nose, and then it carried through on that on the palate. I've never tasted a Burgundy with so much tropical fruit, and this is a warmer site now. It's a warmer site and a warmer vintage, and so it's warming, and the wines are changing. It's just not the same expression of this sort of flinty mineral, slightly oaky kind of popcorn, corny kind of profile. Gosh. Oh, I've never had POG in a beer. I'm going to have to do that. Thank you. I drank my weight in POG on my last trip to Hawaii. That was a wonderful experience and missed it. Certainly after tasting that Chardonnay today, it flashed all back and I wanted to do it again, but now I'll have to try that. It's like a Rodler, huh? Where you're mixing like lemonade and beer, but POG instead, huh? I won't turn you down, Chris. You can bring one in anytime. Okay, so we've got Pinot Noir, Bierzo, and the grape there is Mencia. We've got Carignan, Sanso, kind of southern France blend. We've got Bordeaux blend. But principally, we're thinking old world, not so much new world, it sounds like. And I think that's pretty fair. Some of these acidities, some of this tannin, some of that potential little funkiness that's there, all lead you more toward the old world than the new world. So I think you're in good shape thinking that. Candy, Spain, yeah, Spain has that opportunity here. And I mean, even a kind of interesting Garnacha, Syrah, Carignana kind of blend, a little bit higher altitude, perhaps younger vine kind of expression. Curtis, that's a tried and true method of playing this game. If you have access to seeing the bottle and you can play the bottle shape and style. And so, yes, this is definitely not in a Bordeaux bottle. So we were thinking from that standpoint, it's likely not Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot blended together, Malbec. Now to not too. There's some, instances where outside of Bordeaux, those varietals are bottled in a shape like this, but generally speaking, this would take you more in the vein of a Mencia or of a Grenache blend. Some had noted a little bit of variation, Chris did, and others about age. So how old do you think this is? Do you think this is a wine that has 2 to 4 years of age, 3 to 5 years of age. Is it older than 5 years? Sarah, Burgundy or Carignan? Yep. Carignan can kind of run in Spain and it can run in France too. And it's difficult to parse the two out. Oh, Natalie, cool. Dave, you're pulling off a North Coast Pinot Noir. That's fun. Okay. Huh. A Rhone blend, kind of Eastern, Lower Alps. Yeah. I think there's room to certainly think about that. There's like a lower alpine, sort of a higher elevation experience where that red fruit comes as opposed to really dark fruit, and where you get a medicinal element. Yes, I think that makes some sense. Like I like kind of a little bit higher plateau Garnacha from Spain. I like the Mencia call. Chris is noting about 5 years. Dean's saying 3 to 5 years. So we might have a little bit of age here. So, which is every time we transition a year, it takes me a moment to kind of put the math back together, where 2020 is a 4-year-old wine at this point, certainly by virtue of how we think of it in the calendar. Chêne Bleu, oh gosh, Chêne Bleu makes lovely wines like this. So yeah, Vaucluse, they make gorgeous wines. Julie loves Chêne Bleu. I don't think they make a wine that I know of that would be in this price point, unfortunately, but yes. So one of the Côte du Rhône village kind of villages. So when you say Côte du Rhône village, you've got the slopes of the Rhône and the villages of the Rhône that make up that designation. You can have single villages like Vaucluse, like Gigondas, like Vaqueras, like there are others in that mix too. Corbière is nice. You're kind of close to that further south. So Corbière, Chris, you're saying kind of Carignan and Sanso and Syrah and Grenache, kind of Corbière blend. Yeah, I like the 2 to 4 year kind of three to 4 year idea. So 2020, 2021. And didn't we do that last month? Did we? Gosh, I can't remember. Where were we last month? It really tripped me up, I think, didn't it? Which I think this one probably going to do the same. So, yeah, and she doesn't repeat. That's a good way to play the game, is she really won't typically repeat, but she does keep us on our tones for sure. So Chris Shirley is at Vaqueras. Chris Pearman is at Corbière. We've got a Burgundy call, a Spanish call, a Mencia call, a Northern California Pinot Noir call, 3 to 5 years of age. So I'm going to stick with Mencia. I'm going to go Ribera Sacra, which is a region close to Bierzo. Gives you some ripeness, a little bit more rustic quality than the Bierzo. And I'm going to say, yeah, 4 years of age, so 2020. That's where I think I'm going to stick. And if we keep all venturing to throw darts at the board per Dean's note, we'll get somebody, right? Somebody will win. And if somebody wins, we all win. We've already all won because we've gotten a chance to do this together. So let's see. Castro Ventosa, Valtuille. Oh, this is Raul Perez. This is Bierzo. Awesome. 2019, guys. So this is 5 years or 4 or 5 years old. So you called the age. Nice call, Dean, on Bierzo. I walked a little bit away from that just at the last minute. This is Mencia. The grape is Mencia. Oh, that's very fun. Cool. That's neat. That meatiness there. So kind of think about that for a minute. This is a really good example. Raul Perez makes just extraordinary Mencia in Bierzo, in Ribera Sacra, and he makes a whole host of wines now. I don't know how he does it. Frankly, his name is on a lot of different wines, but he's made his whole life's work trying to showcase the small region of Bierzo. This is neat. This part of the world was part of the pilgrimage trail, the Camino de Santiago, the Compostela de Santiago. Excuse me, I'm getting that wrong. But the Camino Trail, or the pilgrimage trail for Saint Santiago, that the church ran this region, and by virtue of that kind of created laws relative to inheritance, and it wouldn't allow a family necessarily to let one member of the family inherit all, nor would it allow an equal partition of, say, if you had 5 vineyards, you couldn't, and five children, 5 sons, you couldn't give one vineyard to each. You had to give 1/5 of each to each kid. And so fracturing happened here, where you had just micro parcels of ownership. And Raul has spent a good portion of his life bringing that all back together, or a series of different vineyards together, and that's neat. So what a pleasure. Kind of a neat, fun wine to try. So we introduced you to Bierzo, and you remembered it, Dean. This is neat, right? So your flavor memory is being built up, and you were able to draw from it. Chris, you were describing Côte d'Aron and Corbière, and that's because you have that? Ah, shoot. So you have February's wine. All right, forget Chris's comments. We'll revisit those next month. Oh, gosh. Oh, yeah. This is fun wine. Well, thank you all very much for playing along. I'm enjoying just the experience of this. I got a chance to sit in a symposium with Raul Perez a couple of well, now it's a couple of years ago. But yes, he's a really cool looking guy. He's got a really long beard, and he's pretty short, and he has a really interesting take on how he produces wines and how he manages tannin and how he extracts wines and how he does prolonged extractions that many others don't see as being the right way to do things, because it's not been done that way. But he finds that tannins dissipate and then come back, and he finds that alcohols drop over time thanks to that prolonged skin contact and aging. And this wine's 13.5% alcohol, so right there in the middle. But anyway, cheers. Yes. Thank you to all of you. A blast. Certainly. I agree, Sarah. Thank you, Natalie and Curtis and everyone else for joining, for playing along. Enjoy the rest of your bottle, and I will see you again in February. If you are looking for something to do in June beyond just our mystery wine blind tastings or visiting us at the winery, we have about 5 or 6 spots left for our Bordeaux river cruise. We're doing this river cruise in partnership with some friends of ours at Sojourn Travel, and we'll be bouncing back and forth all around the estuary and the 3 rivers that are all in Bordeaux, visiting the right bank and the left bank, tasting through the different regions, doing fun dinners together, and we'll eventually hopefully have an excursion on the last day of the trip. I believe there's 6 spots left for the trip. So if you're interested, please visit our website and or get in touch with us, and we can send you more details. But they are filling up, and I think the boat's filling up too. So if you're interested in doing that, please join us. Otherwise, we have some more mystery wines here in house, and a generally otherwise warm hearth and warm food and more warming wines like this. If you're cold out there, come on in and visit with us, and we'd love to see you. Until the next time here or our next blind tasting, be well. Thanks, everybody.